Tuesday, third day about peace. The word for you today, how to have peace. Psalm 119, verse 165. It says, "Great peace have they who love your law, and nothing can make them stumble." We all want peace in our lives. The psalmist gives us direction on how to experience that peace. And how do we do that? We love God's law. See, the love of God's law brings peace with God. You say, well, how is that? Well, when we obey God's law and we choose to live the way He wants us to, we're in agreement with Him. When we honor God's name, we don't worship anything besides Him. We do not make any idols, and we do not take His name in vain. We're at peace with God. Why? Because we haven't done anything against Him. We've actually obeyed Him, and there's a peace there. That's a peace with God. There's also a peace, the peace of God. When we honor our father and mother, when we don't murder, commit adultery, steal, lie, or covet, then we have the peace of God. Why? Because we've not done things that we feel guilty of. You know, when we've said something that we know we shouldn't have said, there's a guilty feeling. I wish I wouldn't have said that. That wasn't very kind. Okay? We have a lack of peace. The love of God's law brings the peace not only with God, but also of God. And there's also a warning here. If we just try to obey the law like the Pharisees did, that doesn't bring true peace. They didn't have peace. They worked really hard at trying to obey all of God's laws. But it was just an exercise in futility because their heart wasn't in the right place. If we love His law, our heart is with Him, and that's what brings peace. So let me ask you, are you at peace with God today? Are you experiencing His peace? If not, why not? Maybe what we need to do, we need to examine our hearts and learn to love His law. You know, there's some laws I just don't like. I know they're for my good. An example was seatbelts. You remember when seatbelts, it was not a law? You didn't have to wear seatbelts? Well, I can remember that time. And I didn't want to wear my seatbelt. I thought it was wrong for them to force me to wear a seatbelt. But I realized that by disobeying that law, I was not at peace. I didn't have the peace of God. Why? Because I could get pulled over and got a ticket because I wasn't obeying the law. During the bombing raids of World War II, thousands of children were orphaned because their parents were killed, and many of them went to refugee camps or orphanages, and there wasn't a lot of food to go around, and these children were hungry all the time. And then when they went to bed at night, they didn't sleep well. Why? Because they weren't sure they were going to get to eat the next day. And then somebody came upon an idea, and they said, when they go to bed, give them a piece of bread. Let them hold that piece of bread as they go to bed at night. See, they realized they got something to eat that day. And that bread in their hand told them they were going to have something to eat tomorrow. And so they could rest. Well, the same way you and I, sometimes we don't rest well. Why? Because we don't have the peace of God, or sometimes the peace with God. And we're not talking about a piece of bread. We're talking about loving His law. So today, is there any of God's laws that you just struggle with, you just don't like? Can you talk to God about that and say, God, help me to come to the point where I love your law. I want to obey you. And God, I want peace with you. And God, I want the peace that you bring. It's amazing how much better we sleep at night. Have a good day.